What's up, YouTube? We're back. I don't have Bill Nye, the camera guy, here. I don't have Bo here. I'm by myself, and I don't know how to use this camera setup. So I'm about to move forward and do some stuff on the engine and get some stuff swapped over. But first, we did all weekend. We cleaned the shop, reorganized, built some benches, and when I show that to you, and then I'm probably gonna set up a time lapse and just do a little bit of engine swap stuff, and we'll go from there. Check this out. A lot better, doesn't it? I don't know if you remember from the first video, but there was all of this piled up with junk, a bunch of boxes. I got 2 truck beds full out there. This bench wasn't here. The bike was over there. The welder was just kind of sitting by itself. Bill Nye got the cabinet set up, organized all the brake clean, all the cleaners. We got some fab stuff on the bottom. That's my favorite. They hate it. They bully me because they think I'm a hoarder. You can't have too much of little metal pieces. I have a box over there. They let me keep them. That little red box, that's all they would let me keep. So I'm gonna move over. I don't know what I want to do yet. I know that I'd like to get all of this cleaned up. This frame was coated, but from the paint job, we got some orange overspray on a bunch of stuff. I mean, you can see it down in here. All over the new tubular control arms, that needs to be cleaned up. I was gonna delete my windshield wiper assembly, but when it's foggy, you know, I don't have to stop, wipe it off. I'm gonna keep that. Probably just gonna make a box and kind of cover it, maybe out of some stainless or something, but I wanna clean this up. This car has to get out of the way. This car has to come out. I have the customer Chevelle. I told y'all we were gonna get in here and pull the transmissions on, swap those, put a Holly on it. Bunch of cool work. We might do some sweet burnouts in it, but this one's in my way. I think the Chevelle will be here tomorrow, so I need to get all of these parts put on this engine. Number 1, because it needs to move, and number 2, because I'm getting some surface rust. It's really humid here in Louisiana, so I don't want to get all this covered. I don't want my seals to get torn up because I put it on a rusty crank, so I'm gonna move some of this to this engine. We're gonna throw this block out back because it's junk, and then we'll decide what to do with this engine. I'll either put it back where it goes, or I'll put it in the car. This car's gonna get pushed outside, get put on a cover, and then once that's done, we'll get the Chevelle in here and we'll go from there. So I'll be right back. Stop the time lapse and not very far into it because I wanted to show you a few things. Number 1, I lost it. I blew it off with brake clean. Anyways, there was a piece of silicone, like rubber clear, like a chunk of it stuck in my steam vent. And I don't know where that would have come from. Nah, it doesn't matter, it's motor trash anyways. I wanted to open up this on camera just to see if there's anything horrific in here. Oh, there's really not. It's not that bad. Look, the cam's not even burned up. Man, as awful as I treated this motor, I'm really surprised. This motor was only in the car for, 2 weeks before I just started absolutely destroying it. And I will say half of it was my fault. Half of it was the GM 4-wire switch that you have to put in for the brake. There's a 12-volt wire that obviously sends 12 volts from the brake back to the brake lights when you hit it. And then there's a 12-volt switch that has constant 12 volts that goes down to your torque converter control. I had them wired up backwards. And before I know it, my buddy's riding behind me going, "Hey man, your brake lights are on all the time," which meant my torque converter was locking when I hit the brake instead of unlocking when I hit the brake for like stopping. So I burned it up pretty quick. I'm dumb, that's my fault. But anyways, I'm gonna finish the time lapse on this. And I think it's just more important that we do front structure, front cover, rear cover, valley cover, and then maybe get the pan off. I don't think I'm gonna swap all the accessories today. I think I just want to seal this motor up, cover it up. My coolant ports would still be open for my water pump, but that's not big of a deal. I just want to kind of cover up what's important, all the oil soaked parts down here. So we're gonna get the time lapse back going, and I'll show you how far I get. puller out, It sucks. It's cheap. It's Matco. It's gonna break, but I got it moving. We'll see how it goes. Pull this out a little bit. Maybe I got lucky and it came far enough. No, in my dreams. I'm gonna go a little bit further with it. That's bottomed out. That's it. I don't remember what I normally stick in here. I think I normally just kind of stick something in the way. Or, hear me out, a hammer. Because who needs a balancer that's not bent? Fine, we'll do it the right way. All right, and it's off. I'm gonna show you what I did. Pretty simple. I just put a really big bolt right there, and then the center of the puller there. Hit it. Super easy, super clean. I didn't really want to get too much today into pulling the accessories and everything, but kind of in my way. I could have left this bracket, but it was 2 bolts. I pulled it, that bracket. When we get done here in a minute, I'm gonna put the oil pump on this motor, and no, I'm not gonna shim it. I will prime it though. I'm gonna pull that timing cover off. I have a brand new one sitting right there, but I don't have the bolts for it. I need the bolts out of this one. So I need the bolts out of this front cover. I need the bolts out of this rear cover. I'll pull that flywheel off, flex plate, pull the bolts, pull the cam sensor, probably keep my crank sensor. I gotta move my mounts over, and I'll probably keep these valve covers just for extras. They're kind of blue, so I tried to match them to both these motors. Pontiac, it's actually Detroit blue. Probably keep the valve covers, and I'll probably end up throwing the heads on the shelf just for extras. There's nothing wrong with these heads. They're the 862s, so they're just about exactly the same as the 706s I have on these. I'd really like some 243s, but really if I'm gonna go with a set of heads, I'd probably just buy some AFRs or some Brodix, or something like a good brand name of aluminum head. I wouldn't just keep the LS style. And why spend the money to get them ported when you can just buy a set of performance heads? I'm gonna steal this timing cover bolts, but I mean, really there's no point in pulling that timing cover and getting ready to put the other one on until I get this oil pump on. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna show you something with this milling oil pump. I'm sure there's 1,000 videos on YouTube, but throw it in, why not? Some people might learn something new. So I'm gonna mount this oil pump. I'm gonna show you some stuff out swapping that Copo spring and that pump. All right guys, so this is a milling 10295. It's a pretty common pump on these LS swaps. Obviously, you got your pump listed on it, 10295. In here is a spring you can change. So these automatically come with a spring in them that I believe GM's, I don't remember it off the top of my head. I believe it's 10 PSI per 1,000 RPM. So typically at 6,000 RPMs, you would see 60 pounds of oil pressure. The spring that is in here is that, I believe. I believe the blue spring drops it by 10. So that's just relief pressure. That's not dropping it consistently over idle or anything else. That just means at 60 PSI, you would be getting 50, and at 50, you'd be getting 40, and so on. I believe that's correct. Somebody's probably gonna get in the comments and school me, but regardless, the Copo spring, they put in the Copo Camaros. This picks it up. Copo Camaro, 15 PSI over the installed red spring. Then you're gonna retorque this nut here, 106 inch-pounds, and right here it even has a note. Changing your relief spring will not change the low idle pressure. You're just changing your high relief pressure. Also have some oil pump bolts here. I swear I ordered ARP, but Michigan Motorsports, they sell a lot of cool LS stuff. I use their stuff a lot. So we're gonna get this pump mounted. I'm gonna take the camera back over there and show you that, and then we'll flip the engine over, pull this nut, put our Copo spring in. I'm not gonna prime it today. I'm not gonna prime it until I get ready to put it in. And I'll show you that later when we actually put the engine in, but go ahead and get this pump on and then we'll be right back. All right, we took our crank bolt out. I got it out of the way. It's torque to yield, torque to angle. This is not a reusable bolt once the threads stretch. She's kind of cooked. I have a new one ready to go. I keep the old one, and I keep an old one laying around just for when I'm turning these motors over, checking my clearances, making sure that I put my rings in correctly and that my bearings aren't locked up and everything else. These bolts torque to 18 foot-pounds for your oil pump. All torque specs are different on some motors. I'm not sure if these change very drastically on the LS motors. I don't know if there's one that's different than 18 foot-pounds, but definitely check your own torque spec if you're gonna do this yourself. And make sure that it's 18 foot-pounds, because if you listen to me and your engine blows up, then you'll just be like me. You'll be just like me, because I blow them up all the time doing shit wrong. So don't listen to me, don't follow me. I can't read. We have the engine flipped over. This is a 8 Allen. I think you can use a 5/16 as well. I don't know, I'm a metric man. I don't like standard, I'm young. Somebody's gonna yell at me for that. I'm like, oh my God, back in my day, all we had was standard. I'm a traitor to my country. I don't care, I like metric. So all you do is break this cap loose. We're gonna torque it back when we're done. It looks like they put thread locker on from the factory, which is super cool. Thanks, Melon. I'm not gonna add any more to it. I don't really care. Red spring, that's the one that comes in the pump. And we want the black spring, Cocoa spring, because Cocoa Melon, Cocoa Puffs are super cool. So you put your spring in, push back down on your cap, make sure you don't cross thread it. And if you do cross thread it, send it home. It's free Loctite. You don't even have to add anything to it. I'm gonna put torque on this just because I'll do it the right way. There's some things I torque, there's some things I do not torque, and people frown upon it. I personally believe anything that's involved with oil transfer, oil pressure, like bearings, obviously rods and crank, you definitely want to, 106 inch-pounds? Yeah, you definitely want to torque that. I'll even torque my water pump. Just because anything that I have to go back and take back off because it's leaking and reseal for the 5th time because I was just too lazy to torque it. I've been down that route. It's just not worth it. Just torque some stuff. Now other stuff, no way. It says 106 inch-pounds, but you saw me have to break that a second ago. I don't believe that. I'm gonna give it just a little bit more. See? Breaking the rules is fun. We're done with that. I'm gonna go seal the timing cover bolts. We're gonna kick it back into a time lapse just to save you all the insufferable yelling and wrench throwing and whatever else. We'll throw a timing cover on. All right, so check this out. Timing cover's off. See, that is a performance-built motor. I mean, what do you want, everything to be billet and clean, aluminum, like polished? Like, bro, this is a good oil pump, all right? It loses pressure every now and then, but so does your husband. I don't mind it, you know? I don't mind losing a little oil pressure every now and then. Look at the chain, bro. That is just excellent. That's a 7-second motor. Like, there's no way it's not. See how pretty we made it look? It just looked so good for how awful it truly is on the inside. Just like me. All right, so off camera, I cleaned up my water pump spacer plates and scraped all the old gasket off of it. I also scraped the water pump. I don't think anybody wanted to watch 20 minutes of me scraping gasket. This is an LS2 pump, I believe, water pump. It's like brand new, that's why I'm reusing it. It wasn't on the engine long. Obviously, with a spacer, I need a gasket, and for the pump, I need a gasket. So it takes 2 sets of gaskets. Luckily, I had a bunch laying around. We're gonna kick back into the montage now. So we got this engine in the air. This engine is almost sealed. We just need this pan. Obviously, perfectly brand new pan, spotless, no paint on it. I didn't rub it on the frame or anything. We're gonna drain the oil out of this. I'll probably end up reusing the gasket. You've seen me really reuse a lot of these gaskets on this engine because all these gaskets were 2 weeks old. Now, if I got an old brittle rubber gasket, I got extras, obviously, not gonna reuse it. But for this engine, I'm gonna reuse some of these gaskets. I'll probably end up reusing this old pan gasket. I do have a new pickup tube O-ring. I'm not gonna reuse that. I had oil pressure problems, I don't wanna do that again. I'm gonna get this pan pulled and drained. We'll time lapse that. Get it done on the engine. Y'all wanna watch all that anyways. But before we drain the oil, this was the transmission fluid. That was bad. It smells really bad from here. So we're gonna drain this, get the pan swapped over, and we'll go from there. This pan, I kind of made a mess. It's still draining, I just threw the plug back in it. Some of the old pickup holes were still leaking, but this oil smells awful. I mean, this looks like something I'd pull out of a diesel motor. Not good, not good. We're gonna clean this pickup tube out real good. Make sure there's no debris in it. Clean the pan out real good, make sure there's no debris in it. I'll do that off camera. Y'all wanna watch me cleaning. We'll stick it on the new motor, but honestly, I wanna pull one of these rod caps, or maybe one of the mains. Just something. I wanna look at some of these bearings. Honestly, I wanna see how bad this motor was. I know it was losing oil pressure real bad. It's kinda intermittent. I think it has a lot to do with that 350,000 mile oil pump. I was assuming maybe it was pickup tube, but our pickup tube looks sealed real good. And if it's not, the oil pump on these LS motors, typically it's this cam retainer plate back here. It's what holds your cam to the block. You put your gear to the cam, so those usually leak by pretty bad. But because this is so awful, really can't tell unless I were to pull it in the retainer plate and just look at the gasket and see how bad that really is. I'm not gonna do that because I don't really care to, oh, what's the camera doing? Jesus, oh God. Anyways, we're gonna get this torn down, cleaned up. We'll stick it on the new one. I'll do the cleaning up off camera, and then we'll pull a rod bearing. Let me see what it looks like. I'm willing to bet that it is torched. So we got this pickup tube off, and I wanted to show you, I may have found the problem. Focusing on that. That is the old pickup tube O-ring. You can see it's been kind of crushed and was shoved out the side. I don't even remember where I got this O-ring. I don't know if it came with the kit or I ended up using a stock one, but there's 3 or 4 different ones you can use. Melling recommends different ones with these pickup tubes and the signs on them. This one, obviously, was the wrong one. So this 350,000 mile oil pump probably isn't the culprit. Now there's the cam retainer plate. I bet it was this O-ring. This is probably a user failure on my part, which is interesting because it held oil pressure for, it was in the car months. I mean, this engine's been in the car for months, but it was only driven for about 2 weeks before this car was taken to a paint shop where it was completely stripped down, all the body work was done, and it was painted orange. So in the 2 weeks that I drove it, we did a memorial party where we did massive burnouts, and that's when it really started. But realistically, I drove the car back and forth to work, 10, 15 minutes either way, and didn't really lose oil pressure except for 1 or 2 times. Going up a hill, I lost it, killed it, cut it back on, and gained my oil pressure back and kept riding it out. I knew this motor was gonna blow. I did not trust the amount of mileage that was on it. This was like a test and tune motor. This was the LS swap into the car initially, just to get everything rocking and rolling, get our mounts where they go, get our transmission mounted, and just see if it ran. Honestly, I had no idea if the motor even run, and it did. When I cranked it up, I heard turnover, kind of you can hear the sound of a low compression motor. I had a dead hole. Obviously I was losing oil pressure here and there, which may have even been my fault. But either way, this motor was junk. We got this motor built. We got a new pickup tube O-ring, and hopefully this time we don't do it wrong. And if we do, we'll build another one. I mean, they're laying around. You can get them anyway. So I'm gonna finish cleaning all this out, put it on the new motor. We're gonna pull a rod bearing, and we're gonna see what it looks like. So that made a world of difference. When I put this in on the other motor, I was like, damn, that really doesn't feel right. I don't think that O-ring goes there. And we did that whole thing where you just fully send it and don't care. But that one sat a lot better. It went in there like it was supposed to, and it felt great. It snugged right in, it held the pipe itself. It didn't try to wall or fall out. And the seal didn't feel like it was swollen or tried to get in the way. I got both my bolts in. Obviously I torqued them with that torque wrench right there, Allen torque wrench. And got my bolts set up. I'm gonna throw the pan on, and then we're gonna check out the damage to that motor. Let's take a closer look at this. I've seen much worse, honestly. Normally, you know, if you can feel a fingernail of damage in there, it's too far gone. It's still relatively smooth. I mean, the bearing's shot, but it's not as bad as I expected. As much as this engine actually lost oil pressure, I'm surprised that that's not worse. I'm gonna stick this back in this motor because we're gonna rebuild this at some point, and I mean, that's it. That's the bearing, that's the oil pressure motor right there, ready to go. Let's get this cleaned up. This whole area is just trash. Oh God! Now you might be thinking to yourself, Colin, your whole goal today was to get this motor cleaned up and sealed so that it wouldn't rust anymore. Nothing would get inside of it. I forgot to order a part. There's a little bypass valve that goes in here. It's a plunger. They come plastic. They're kind of junk. You can get one for like 30 bucks. It's like billet. It comes with 2 O-rings, one on one side and one on the other. I'll show you what it looks like. This. But instead of having one O-ring on just one side, it's got it on both instead of this knobby stuff here. So, I didn't get the new rear cover put on, but I have it ready. I got my gasket. Those are front cover bolts. I don't know what they're doing over here. Lost the other ones. I'll find them. And we solved our problem. This was the culprit. You know, I made a mistake. It happens, you know, and luckily it happened on something of mine instead of something, you know, someone else's. So we'll get our new rear cover put on next time, or probably when we get ready to put the motor in, because I'm not really tripping about what's missing here. You know, we got some galleries, but I got some clean care caps. Maybe I'll stick them in there. It's a little open on the bottom, but it's a lot better than it was. We got the top covered. Obviously we already had the valve covers on. We got the front covered. We got the pan on, and really the pan was the most important part, but we got our accessory kits on. We got our motor mounts on. We got this junk motor sitting over here. We're gonna save that for another build. It's just another 5.3, but you know, free motor. It's sitting there, it's ready. So we got all this done today, and kind of cleaned up. I still got a lot more I gotta do in here, and hopefully next time, Bill Nye, the camera guy, and Bo will be here, and it'll make it a lot easier to get all this done. So anyways, that's gonna finish it up for today. We're gonna get a new one of these. We'll get our rear cover put on. We'll get our engine dropped in. I don't know if we're gonna have time to do that first, or if we're gonna have to wait until that Chevelle is done. We get our transmission, and hopefully after we get that transmission on the ground, we'll order our parts. I'll get my intake, and I'm really considering not going with a carburetor. I'm thinking about going with a Holley Sniper. Same style, it keeps the classic look I want. I can keep the Ram Air 3 intake. I can still set everything on top just like it's carbureted. little more futuristic, better cold starts, probably a little bit better performance. We can dial it in a little bit better, and I think it'll complement the MSD system really well. So we'll get those parts ordered as soon as the transmission gets dropped, and we'll see you next time when we start tearing down a Chevelle.